You're listening to Midlife Side Quest, the Over the Hill Gaming Podcast. Here's your host, John Wall.
It's January 16th, 2025, and welcome to another episode of Midlife Side Quest, the Over the Hill video game podcast. My name is John Wall, and every week I bring you my video game impressions, the latest industry news, and tales of a Gen X geek delivered to you in 15 minutes, or your next podcast is free. Thank you so much for tuning in today. On this episode, I'm going to be talking about If Found, but first let's check out some of this week's gaming news. And there's a pretty decent chance that by the time you listen to this podcast, you may have seen the Nintendo Switch 2. The rumors and leaks surrounding this thing have been coming fast and furious the last few weeks, and the latest is that Nintendo will reveal the console itself, but probably not the games, today, Thursday, the 16th. Now, at the time of this recording, which is Wednesday late afternoon, there has been no official word from Nintendo. No cryptic images on social media, no announcements of an announcement, but it seems very likely that we're going to be seeing it today. My guess is that we'll get something pretty similar to the original Switch trailer with lots of video of people using the device, possibly on their rooftops, maybe a few brief glimpses of some of the games running on it, and of course the official name, which it seems is maybe just Switch 2. Those same rumors state that we'll likely get a look at the actual launch lineup next month, and that the console could debut as soon as April, which is exciting. So we'll see. Even though there have been countless leaks about it recently, I am still incredibly jazzed to see this thing for real. I have a confession to make. I've always been kind of dismissive of the whole visual novel genre. It's not like I actively dislike these type of games. I've just never really had any particular interest in checking them out for whatever reason. Maybe I was just waiting for the right one to come along and pique my interest. Then I saw a few people online speaking pretty highly of a visual novel from a few years back. If Found, from developer Dreamfeel and Annapurna Interactive. And if my experience with this one is any indication of what the genre is capable of, well, then I may have made a mistake by waiting until now to check them out. The game follows two parallel storylines. Do we even call these games? I don't even know what the terminology is for the use. Anyway, we're going to call it a game. First, there's the story, the sci-fi story of Cassiopeia, an astronaut who is trying to prevent some cosmic disaster from destroying the Earth. And then there's the story of Cassio, a young woman returning to her small Irish village in the 1990s and dealing with strained family relationships and finding her way in life. The game bounces back and forth between the two storylines, and while the two main characters seem like they could be the same person with similar sounding names and appearances, it's unclear what, if any, connection there is between the two. Most of the time, you're focused on Cassio's tale, and it's largely told by flipping through the pages of her journal. You'll be reading her words and looking at her sketches as she recalls the story. And the only way that you directly interact with the game is with an eraser. After you read a scene, you need to erase everything on the page or on the screen before you can move on, moving the cursor back and forth, wiping away the past and leaving nothing but eraser dust on the page. It's an interesting mechanic to move the story forward, and by the end, it will make sense why you're doing what you're doing. After returning home, Cassio gets into a fight with her mother and leaves home. She meets Colum, I think that's how you pronounce it, who is living in an old rundown building with his bandmates, and invites Cassio to stay with them. There, she finds a group of kindred spirits, others who have come together unwelcome in their own homes and are supportive of each other without judgment. As the story went on, it began to strike a chord with me in a way that not many games do. Obviously, I've experienced characters from games before who I could relate to in certain ways, but this was hitting differently. It was far more personal. Cassio is a young transgender woman, and the conversations that she has with her family, the way that they would speak to her, the hurtful things they would say, were very familiar to me. Calling her weird, saying that she's going through a phase, her struggles with identity and finding acceptance. I've heard these stories before. I know what it's like to see someone you love feel this kind of pain. And that made it very tough to watch at times. It was like a dagger in the heart, kind of. With these new friends, Cassio finds people who she's able to connect with and forms a sort of surrogate family with them. But pretty quickly, reality sets in and you realize that this plan isn't sustainable. They're hungry, they're cold, the building that they're in is clearly unsafe, not to mention that they are trespassing. They have no permission to be staying there. And eventually, the relationships between them get complicated and people end up hurt. It's heartbreaking because you know how real this situation is for a lot of people. In the US, 1 in 5 transgender people will face homelessness at some point in their life. And with that comes a greater likelihood of having chronic health issues. As bad as things get, though, for Cassio, it's not just a story about hardship and the ways in which people can hurt you. There are moments of joy and connection and compassion, like letting go and dancing all night while the band performs, or getting high with a friend and just staring up at the stars through a hole in the roof. While, yes, there are people out there who will be ignorant and hateful, there are also people in this world who will love you for who you are and want to be there for you when times are tough. And happy endings are absolutely possible. By the end of the story, Cassio learns that sometimes you need to erase the past in order to write your future. And one of the last things the game does is give you an opportunity to recreate Cassio how you see them, or maybe actually how she sees herself. I changed their hairstyle, clothing, jewelry, glasses, and once I was done, I realized what I had done without even doing it consciously. I stared at the character on screen and I realized I was looking at my child. And I just sat there for a moment on my couch and I cried. Visual novels, huh? The other day I had one of those days that I wish I could just erase from my memory. It was so epically terrible that I just have to share it with you. So one evening last week, my wife's car started making this awful sound on our way home from work, so she dropped it off at the shop. The next morning, since we were down to just one vehicle and both of the kids had appointments that day, she took my car, dropped me off at work. She then brought our oldest to his appointment, dropped him off at school, and then she went off to work. Since she had my car, I didn't have a way home, so I had to take an Uber after work. Not the worst thing in the world, but not money that I was, looking to spend with a car bill looming. Almost as soon as I got home and sat down, my youngest texts me to say that she missed her school bus. And with Christina's work being about 45 minutes away and me having no means to pick her up, I then had to order her an Uber to get home from school. Awesome. We are just burning money at this point. Then we get the call that her engine is on death's door and it's going to cost $3,000 to fix it. Yeah, that checks out. It'll be ready in a day or two, but they have a loaner that we can use. Well, that's good at least. Too bad they close before my wife would be home, so I have to walk to the shop to pick it up. It was only 20 minutes or so. Not awful, but also it was like 5 degrees, so it felt a little longer. Cars suck. Before we go, this week I am sending positive vibes out to Rashid Abueda, and I apologize if I got that pronunciation wrong. I know I did. Sorry. Rashid is a Palestinian game developer and creator of the upcoming game Dreams on a Pillow, which just recently met its initial crowdfunding goal to go into full production of the game. The game is based on a folk tale that takes place during the Nakba of 1948, a period in which 750,000 Palestinians were forced from their homes by the Israeli military. Thousands of civilians were massacred, and homes and villages were burned to the ground. In the game, you play as a woman trying to flee into Lebanon after her husband is murdered. I really appreciate seeing games with these such unique and different tales being told through this medium, and I think that's really important, and I'm looking forward to playing this, even though I know it's going to be probably a very tough experience. The game is hoping to release in late 2026, so congratulations to Rashid on meeting his fundraising goal. Thank you so much for listening to Midlife SideQuest. I appreciate you making time in your day to hang out with me. You can catch new episodes of the show Thursday mornings wherever you listen to podcasts, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. And don't forget to subscribe and leave a review while you're there. If you have a question or comment, you can leave a voicemail at speakpipe.com/sidequest, and you can find me on Blue Sky by searching for Midlife SideQuest. So until next time, be well and happy gaming.